What is up, fight fans? Jim Grieshaber, call me Gries, along with Jeff Cain. Where the Caniacs at? We are back here on MMA Weekly, the most trusted source of news and entertainment for mixed martial arts in the last 20 years. And Jeff, you know, as we look ahead to UFC Fight Night, it is Brunson versus Holland, and everybody's talking about Holland and what a year he had in 2020, getting back in the octagon first time in 2021 against Derek Brunson, perennially one of the top-rated middleweights, and kind of like that test you have to pass if you're going to be a legit title contender. Israel Adesanya had to do it. I mean, the list goes on and on. So, at middleweight, with Adesanya now back down where he belongs as the champ, with Robert Whittaker's #1 contender fight against Paulo Costa now having turned into Robert Whittaker's #1 contender fight against Kelvin Gastelum, and Jeff Cain, with Marvin Vettori and Darren Till set to do battle, also in the top 5. Things are going to start taking shape around here in the middleweight division. It starts this weekend with Brunson and Holland.
Yeah, the middleweight division's starting to shake out now that Izzy's back down in it. And, he's basically said if Darren Till beats Vettori, Darren Till will get the next title shot. I think maybe Izzy is wishful thinking in that because Vettori gave him the hardest fight, to date. And so maybe he wants Darren Till to beat him. Maybe that's his subconscious speaking right there. I don't know who's going to get the title fight, but the division is shaking out. And you're right. This weekend, we have a meaningful heavyweight or a middleweight bout. There's been too many events, Jim. This is the sixth week of an 8-week run for the UFC. Or is this week 7? I think this might be week 7, honestly. Heading up to next week's pay-per-view. It's just been a crazy whirlwind of events. But yes, this is a middleweight fight between two top 10 ranked middleweights. That division's taking shape, just like you said, man.
Yeah, the last week off was the last week of January. We've been going straight through every week with an event. We finally get one off in April. The weekend of April 3rd, we don't have an event. But leading up, and right now, in all the news that came out this week, Jeff, we might as well start here. This is really exciting, man. With Gastelum, my buddy Kelvin, and I've got an interview with KG, an MMA Weekly exclusive coming out here soon, talking about that title shot and all the things that he's got going on. But he's right back in the mix, man, with that win over Ian Heinisch. He looked great in that fight. KG right back in the mix. Now he gets to fight Robert Whittaker, a fight that didn't happen a couple of years ago when it was supposed to. And now Paulo Costa has some issues, and he's not going to be able to fight Whittaker. And you got to wonder with all the stuff that's been going on with Paulo if he's okay. All the stuff about the wine and not being able to sleep. And, that's the biggest fight of his life, and he's drinking a bottle of wine a few hours before. And now he just is posing with bottles of wine, acting like it's funny. And you start to, now he's sick, and you wonder if he's okay. Great opportunity for Gastelum. I feel like Paulo Costa is going to be one of those dudes. If he doesn't get a hold of himself here soon, he's just going to start slipping and throwing things away. I hope that's not the case. I hope it's just like a little bit of a refresh for him. Pause button, come back stronger than ever. And then you got Vettori and Till. So this division's going to be, the focal point now is going to shift to the welterweight division as well, because with the announcement that Masvidal Usman's coming up next month, first event with fans in Jacksonville, Florida, and then the 2 women's title matches, Thug Rose and Wei Lee, and then Valentino and Jessica Andrade. That's a big-time pay-per-view. So we got the big one next week, Jeff. We got the other one coming up with Masvidal and Usman headlining in April, first fight with fans back. It's just not going to stop, man. We talked about the 2 pay-per-views and the 5 title fights this month. It just keeps getting better.
Yeah, they've stocked up April. We got another event, UFC 261, coming up with 3 title fights. It never ends, man, but that's what we signed up for. This weekend, the fights continue. And like you said, the beginning of April, we get a week off. It's just been a crazy whirlwind since the beginning of January. It kind of started out with that. And then this one with February 6th, I think is when it started with Overeem and Volkov. And it's literally been an event every weekend. Some bigger than others. This event doesn't have the name value of some of the fight cards that we're talking about, but there are really good fights on this fight card. And honestly, I'm not sure name value matters that much on these ESPN fight cards that are shown on television and streamed live on ESPN Plus, because people are going to tune in anyway. It's UFC fights. That's the name. The name's it's the UFC event on cable television. And so a lot of people are going to tune in, and that's what makes this fight card big when it doesn't look like it on paper. It is big because millions of people are going to watch, and so people are going to make names for themselves on this fight card, and others are going to kind of solidify themselves in the rankings. Kevin Holland's either going to be that rising prospect, or he's going to get his tracks are going to come to a stop right here in the around the 10th or 9th ranked spot. Lots of meaningful fights. There's ranked females on the preliminary card, but it doesn't have the name value of the events that we're talking about.
No, it doesn't. And, Derek Brunson's a guy, too, at the top of that division who's been, high up in the rankings for a long time, Jeff Cain, and, always looking at him as a perennial contender, so to speak. He's right now at number 7. He's been in different places in that division throughout his career, and obviously, he's had a good run. He's had some big fights. He's fought against some huge fighters, and he has sort of become that guy that you have to beat to get there. Look, he's a wrestler. He's from North Carolina at Pembroke. My little nephew actually wrestled with him in college at UNC Pembroke, but and he was the guy that everybody thought would be a star. But he is on a 3-fight win streak, Jeff. He's coming off wins over Elias Theodoro, Ian Heinisch, who Kelvin Gastelum just beat, and Edmund Shabazi, and that's a big win for him too. So 3 in a row after the losses back-to-back to Jacare and Israel Adesanya. So he was at the top of the division fighting those guys. He fought Machida, Jacare, and Israel Adesanya back-to-back-to-back, and now he's on a 3-fight win streak, looking to derail Kevin Holland, who had a 5-0 year.
Yeah, I mean, his career losses are to extremely talented fighters. Izzy, Jacare twice, and Anderson Silva,
Whittaker.
Yeah, Romero. Even the Kendall Grove loss at the time back in 2012 was not a bad loss. People have to remember Kendall coming off that Ultimate Fighter. Yeah, I mean, he was, but he was, actually rose to be kind of a contender in the UFC before it all kind of fell flat and he left the organization. But his losses are to good guys. He's been in there with really good people, which is why he's that good litmus test, as you brought up. He's the guy you have to go through. He holds the key to the top 5 in that division. You have to get past Brunson to get there. Brunson's been there. He's trying to claw his way back. Yeah, and he's done that with a 3-fight win streak. He's on the cusp of getting close to be where he was before those back-to-back losses. For Holland, man, he fought 5 times last year, man. I mean, he was arguably fighter of the year. And he's ranked number 10, and he's a guy that everybody's watching. Strangely, he didn't get signed by Dana White because he felt like he talked too much. He just talked so much shit on Dana White's Contender Series. He's like, I'm not signing this guy. COVID came around, fights started falling off, and he's like, call Loudmouth. Loudmouth showed up and made a statement. He's got 5 wins in a row, and he's looking at cracking in to almost contender status if he beats Brunson Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And he would be in contender status, right? I mean, they've definitely talked about him a lot. He knows how to make a name for himself. He's last year had a huge year and climbed all the way up in the rankings. I mean, look, he's at number 10 now, Kevin Holland. And, I mean, what a good year for him last year. He ended up 5-0. He didn't fight the biggest names. His win over Jacare, though, at the end of the year was our knockout of the year. It was great. Obviously watching him on his meteoric rise. I was there, Jeff, and it was not that long ago. I mean, it was all the way back in 2018, wasn't it? In Los Angeles when Dana White called him up from, he won. Speaking of Holland, he beat Will Santiago Jr. on the Contender Series, and then he lost against Thiago Santos. This was it was August of 2018, and I remember because it was Henry Mighty Mouse 2, and it was Dillashaw Garbrandt 2, and I was out there with the Cejudo camp for that fight card with the Neuroforce 1 guys, and we were out in LA the whole week. We were at all the press events. We were at the open workouts, the media days, and all those things. And I remember afterwards, I actually have myself a clip of me asking Dana White a question about who else stood out that night, and he answered it. Let's call Big Mouth. And that's where the whole thing started with Kevin Holland. And I was there for that Santos fight. It was a war back and forth. He lost by decision. His submission loss to Brendan Allen's his only loss in the UFC since then. He went on a 3-fight win streak. Then he lost to Brendan Allen. And he's got, 5 in a row now. I mean, and obviously he derailed Joaquin Buckley. Last year he beat Anthony Hernandez. He has a win over Darren Stewart. And Darren Stewart, we just saw him in his fight over the weekend. So, that's an interesting, he's fought a lot of the guys we've been talking about lately. He fought Jacare at the end of the year. The Eric Anders fight was the one that Darren Stewart just, obviously took the illegal knee, and that was no contest. But, he's fought some pretty high-level dudes, but this is the next step up for him. If he's going to take that next step toward title contention, Brunson's that guy, and he has been for others before him. So it's going to be either Brunson, stays where he is and cements himself as a mainstay in the top 5 of that division, or Holland takes the next step forward, and that's it. Those are the 2 potential outcomes with this fight.
Yeah, and look, Holland, 4 of his 5 wins in a row here have been finishes. He's not only winning fights, he's putting on spectacular performances, which always raises your stock with the fans and the promotion, and that's why he's headlining this fight card. But yeah, I think that all eyes are on Holland. While I agree, Brunson is there, and Brunson is the he's kind of the veteran that that holds the court for the top of this division. Holland's the new guy, man, and he's laying waste to a lot of people. And so I think that a lot of eyes are on Kevin Holland. Plus, he was if he didn't get fighter of the year, he was in everybody's list for 2020. Even if he didn't get that recognition, every website in the world that comes out with a fighter of the year award, he was on that list. He was at least an honorable mention. And so here he is getting an opportunity. And while I said to jump into contender status, we just talked about the top of that division. We have a lot of meaningful fights getting ready to take place. And so this win won't put Holland completely in title contention, but once those fights play out, he's going to end up in title contention if he wins here. So this is the biggest fight of his career.
Yeah, it really is. And I can't wait. I mean, it's always exciting to see people get these opportunities, Jeff, and run with them. And, we've seen Holland and we've seen Brunson. And for Brunson, I mean, look, he's been close for a long time. He's looking to work his way back there, too. By no means is he comfortable being the guy in the middle of the top 5, scoots down toward the 10 mark a little bit more, works his way back up. He wants to work his way into title contention. And he saw a guy who he just beat in Ian Heinisch get beat by Kelvin Gastelum. Now Gastelum takes the place of Paulo Costa against Robert Whittaker. Well, you got Vettori and Till Titan fighting. If I'm Derek Brunson, I'm thinking I get a win here, and I might not get a title fight my next time out, but 2 wins and I could get one. So this is 50% of the way there for Derek Brunson, but he's got to turn back Holland this weekend. He's got to do it in impressive fashion, and then I could see him, potentially moving on up and, getting a fight like, one of those guys like the Whittaker Gastelum loser or the Vettori Till loser, maybe even one of the winners. You don't know, but he's got to win impressively this week to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, I feel like there's more pressure on Brunson to win impressively because Holland's done what he did last year and he's heading into this fight on a lot of momentum. I feel like Holland just has to win, right? He just has to win. It doesn't have to be crazy impressive. He just has to win, and he's going to jump up into the top 5 of the rankings. Now for Brunson, I feel like he's been there and done that, and he's kind of been up and down in that division. And so he needs an impressive performance to reinsert himself back into the contender status, in my opinion. Just a win for Brunson, I feel like he stays exactly where he is in the rankings, but an impressive win gets him up there, where I feel like Kevin Holland just needs a win right now. He's the one on the rise right here. Let's not confuse that. While Brunson is on a 3-fight winning streak, he has the better name. He has the better resume. He's been in there with much stiffer competition. Kevin Holland's the one on the rise in this fight.
Yeah, he is, no doubt, but it can be quickly derailed.
Yeah, we've seen that over and over and over again. Hey, we haven't talked about that illegal knee since Herb Dean came out and said that he felt like it was baited into that situation. Like he kind of raised his knee and baited him into throwing that knee. And I thought that was an interesting perspective that only a referee could have in that moment, but Herb didn't explain why that was a no contest. He felt like the guy on his knee baited the illegal knee to be thrown. Interesting.
It's UFC Fight Night, Brunson versus Holland. Jim Grieshaber, Jeff Cain, powered by CBD Emporium, featuring Level Select CBD. Go to stayinthefightmma.com, stayinthefightmma.com, and enter the code MMA50. Stayinthefightmma.com. The code's MMA50 to get 50% off CBD Emporium and Level Select CBD products today. As we continue looking ahead, the UFC preview show, Jeff, and we look at this fight card, and obviously a huge pivotal matchup at the top of the middleweight division is the headlining fight, but also looking down at the co-main event, Brad Quake Riddell against Gregor Gillespie. Now, Gregor Gillespie, the undefeated wrestling star who had a violent ending to his undefeated streak and record come to an end against Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee knocked him out with a head kick. This was November of 2019. It was the same night. It was the night that Jorge Masvidal beat up Nate Diaz to be the BMF. It was that fight card. It was UFC 244. So a long time out for Gregor Gillespie since that fight, and it was the first fight of the main card. He got knocked out by a head kick. He was undefeated. He's coming into Madison Square Garden, biggest stage on the sport. BMF is the main event, huge event coming into, and it could not have gone worse for Gregor Gillespie. He's a guy who's been, a collegiate wrestling star, an undefeated mixed martial artist. He's finally getting back in the octagon after a long time out.
Yeah, look, when you get knocked out the way that he got knocked out, that was a brutal knockout. That was the highlight from that fight card. That got shown over and over. I mean, just got head kicked and done. I like that he's taking time off. And here's a guy who's an accomplished athlete in other sports. So I think that he's smart. There's two ways it goes. Whenever you take your first career loss, it either takes you a while to kind of accept that. And then other people just go right back to the drawing board, and it actually takes pressure off of them. And I feel like Gillespie might be one of those people because he has such, an accomplished athletic career before mixed martial arts. And so I feel like he's going to be fine with the loss. It sucks to lose like that in front of millions of people in such a historic venue. But at the same time, man, I feel like he's going to be able to put that, departmentalize that right in his head and just come back as if it's business as usual, where that not everybody can do that. Not everybody can get knocked out like that as their first career loss on that stage in that venue and then bounce back. And I'm glad they took the time off. I feel like anytime you get knocked out like that, man, take 8 months off. Stop taking damage to the head.
Yeah, you've said that a lot about Tony Ferguson with the Gaethje fight, came back against Oliveira, and now it looks like they're working on another fight for Ferguson against Beneil Dariush. That one's kind of cool. So big fights coming up, though, Jeff. And this is a week where, every single week we've had so many big dominoes falling and so much, that has come to light and so many things that have taken shape because of all these fights, for example, in the heavyweight division. Then you had Usman dismantling Burns, and now right away, another short notice turnaround for Masvidal and Usman. They're not going to coach the Ultimate Fighter first. They're going to fight each other next month. First fight back with fans. UFC wanted a big one. They have Usman and Masvidal already. And this is something that, I have to think Dana White's been keeping in his back pocket for a long time now. None of us knew, obviously, but, we're excited, man. I mean, you got this one this week. You got the opportunities for Brunson and for Holland really to take the next step, for Gillespie to get back on track, for Brad Riddell. You talked about Riddell winning a bunch of fights in a row. This is a great opportunity for him. He's only had 3 UFC fights, and he gets in there and to find out who a really good prospect in Riddell taking on Gregor Gillespie. So I'm excited for each of those guys with the opportunity. This card is not top-heavy with a bunch of names, although you might have Tai Tuivasas in there, the heavyweight, so you might have a shoey. But, anytime there's a chance to have a shoey, you're happy with that. But when I look at this fight card overall, man, it's just more opportunity for fighters to make a name for themselves. And how do you think that beast gets fed? How do you think the machine keeps going and grinding and building and growing? It's the UFC machine, baby. You're going to see fighters getting more and more opportunities, especially, like you said, Jeff, on these ESPN cards, ESPN Plus cards, in between the big pay-per-views, especially now that they're stacking the pay-per-views again with big-time fight after big-time fight. You're going to have a lot of weeks like this where you're going to look at the main event and then you're going to look below it and go, hey, I think I know that guy. I think I know that girl. I think I know. Oh, I saw them. And then the one thing I'll say to add to that, Jeff, as I look back, and I've been covering the UFC pretty regularly, press passes and all that since about 2010, and I remember watching the Tony Fergusons and the Max Holloways and all those guys, the Volkanovskis, the Ortegas. I remember watching all of them on the early prelims and the prelims. All of them on the early prelims and the prelims. You always have to watch because you never know when you're going to see the next superstar in the making. And that's what the UFC is doing right now. They're creating one almost every week. Holland's one of them last year. Holland's one of them they were creating last year.
Yeah, look, big names sell pay-per-views, right? And so we see these stacked pay-per-view cards. Where big names are made are on these fight cards or the Ultimate Fighter, and then sometimes people make a huge wave on the Contender Series. The UFC is a machine, and they have several avenues to build people, but ESPN is one of their biggest avenues. And so, yeah, man, if Kevin Holland wins this, then you're going to see him on pay-per-view cards for at least the foreseeable future until he starts losing fights. And so this is where the pay-per-view names are built. And so you're right, man. We've seen everybody start somewhere. Everybody outside of whenever the UFC kind of folded over Strikeforce and folded over the WEC, and you had stars already established in those organizations being put on pay-per-view cards. When you start out, this is how the UFC works, And so to build people from the ground up, these are the cards that they do. And so this fight card's going to have more viewers than a pay-per-view. And so this is huge opportunities for these people. And yeah, you're right, man. It's just part of the business model. We build you up on undercards and fight night cards and on the Ultimate Fighter and on the Contender Series until you become a big enough star to get on a pay-per-view and sell tickets, man, and sell buys. And I think Kevin Holland particularly is one of those guys that's on the cusp of jumping over from these fight night cards to pay-per-view cards.
Yeah, man, and it's a lot of fun too to see this, and you get the opportunity for the free TV and the ESPN Plus, and they have to produce a certain number of shows, so more fighters than ever are getting the opportunity to fight in the UFC, and a lot of the higher-priced older fighters, are being phased out. They're bringing in these younger fighters who don't cost a lot of money. They have to fulfill the TV contracts anyway. They have ESPN to make them all into stars. It's a can't lose, and it's a great system to keep. It's almost like restocking a pond with fish, right? The fish get too big, they get pulled out. Well, the younger fish and smaller fish are being groomed to come on in, right, Jeff? So I look at that, and I'm like, man, this is badass. And it's every single week an opportunity to do more, to see more, and to make a name for yourself and for these younger fighters. So for one, I'm pumped to do this show every week. I'm very excited for this one. I can't lie and say that I'm as excited this week as I was a couple of weeks ago, as I will be next week when we have the big pay-per-view, Jeff. I mean, but how can you not be excited about, and then next week's an embarrassment of riches for the fight fan. You got Sugar Sean O'Malley and Thomas Almeida. You got Woodley and Luque at welterweight. Can Woodley get back in the win column? He's not fighting Burns. He's not fighting Usman. He's not fighting Colby for once. That's all Woodley's done for the last couple of years. And now Volkanovski and Ortega finally going to throw down. It seems like that fight's been announced forever. And then Stipe and Ngannou too, almost 3 years in the making. So what an incredible fight card, and what an opportunity for Alonzo Menifield and William Knight next week to headline the prelims on a card like that. And, for Nurmagomedov, Abubakar Nurmagomedov's on this card. Another Nurmagomedov. Imagine that. He's going to keep Dana's going to stay in Khabib's ear. So next week's a big one. Then the one in April's a big one with Masvidal and Usman. And we're just going to get a bunch of these in between. And we did kind of get spoiled, though, for a while there, Jeff, because we did get Blaze and Lewis, and we did get Rosenstruik and Gane. And, and Gane's in the news, by the way. JDS is appealing his loss to Cyril Gane, saying there was an illegal strike on the back of the head.
Well, good luck with that, Junior. Yeah, that's not going to go anywhere, in my opinion. But look, all of these, like we just talked about Kevin Holland and his knockouts and stuff of the year and everything. Look, all those took place on Fight Night cards. The Fight Night cards deliver. And that's the bottom line. You might not know everybody on the fight card, but it's on TV. It's probably the best thing on TV. You can watch that last season of the Kardashians finally wrap it up, or you can tune in and watch the UFC. I suggest you tune in and watch the UFC, right? And so this is going to have a lot of eyes on it. And people, I say it all, so many times, and I know it's going to sound like a broken record.
Right.
And fights sell fights, man. Big names sell pay-per-views, and I understand why everybody gets excited about it. But these fights are going to deliver. They're absolutely, even last week with all the shenanigans that went on in that, we still had those 3 crazy knockouts in a row, and you had great performances. You're going to have all that on this fight card, hopefully without the no contest. So I'm excited for this fight card. It's got people on here going places. It's got some people like Brunson, who's a veteran. It's got people like Holland moving up in the division. It's got people trying to find that spot, Gillespie.
Yep. And well, it's people jockeying for position on the pay-per-views, Jeff. I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I was trying to pick up on your point. You made a great point, because we're building toward things in each division. And if you notice a trend and a theme with what the UFC's been doing, the pay-per-views have been following their own script. And when you get a chance to book Masvidal and Usman too, and George sells a ton of pay-per-views now, you got to do it. It's the first one back with fans. It has to be a spectacle. It's in Florida, where Masvidal lives, where Usman's been from. It's not all the way down in South Florida. It's still 5 hours away by car, 5.5, but it is in Florida. And Masvidal's a Florida boy. So that's kind of cool, little backdrop there. But other than that, it's the pay-per-views, man. If you look at, the fight nights, Jeff, if you look at this fight night, it's Brunson and Holland, number 7 and number 10. Where? Middleweight. Look at the next 2 fight nights after this, April 10th and April 17th. Till Vittori and Whittaker Gastelum, which was going to be Whittaker Costa. So Till Vittori, obviously you're looking at those 2 guys. It's number 4 and number 5, Darren Till, Marvin Vittori. How Till's ranked ahead of him, and it's not even his division, and he's coming off a loss. I have no idea, but these are the rankings that you leave to people who Jeff is not proud to be colleagues with on those panels, by the way, because he talks about it all the time. And then you have Whittaker and Kelvin, who's 8. It was Whittaker Costa 1 and 2. And then Izzy's on the sidelines after trying to go up and take Jan's belt. So this whole middleweight division, that top 5 is going to be absolutely solidified. And then the question will be, who's going to look the best? Will it be Till? Will it be Vittori? Will it be Gastelum? Will it be Whittaker? Whoever looks the best out of those 4 fighters in those fights will more than likely get the title shot. But if Brunson drops Holland, or Holland drops Brunson, even better from a storyline standpoint, if Holland knocks out Brunson quick and things happen and the universe changes and bends things around, you could see Holland get a title shot. You could see Brunson get a title shot. This is not for sure getting them anywhere near a title shot, but the possibility could exist. But either way, within these next 3 fight nights, that top 5 at middleweight will be solidified.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You see, like you said, these events, the next 3 events starting Saturday, are kind of to do that. We're sorting out the top of the middleweight division, and you're going to see a late summer or early fall championship fight. He's going to be down there defending his belt. And that's just the way it's going to be. It's going to be who looks good and who's ready at the time. And then we're in a weird world of COVID causing fights to drop off fight cards at the last minute. And so you can see a lot of people jump into a title fight. It wasn't COVID related, but Kelvin Gastelum's getting a golden opportunity.
Huge.
A golden opportunity because Paulo Costa got injured. And careers are made on that. It isn't so much. It's always the guy who stays ready that benefits the most in these kind of environments.
How about though King's MMA in Huntington Beach with Vettori and Gastelum teammates in the same weight class fighting Darren Till, who Kelvin's already fought, and we've seen Vettori fight Hermanson, who Gastelum had already fought. Every time one of these guys fights another fighter, they get the game plan on them, and they get to work that camp and drill them. That's a huge advantage. They're not only on the same fight team, fighting the same opponents, ranked in the top, well, Kelvin's right on the outside of the top 5 in the same division, and fighting to potentially, so if if Gastelum and Vettori both win, then who gets the title shot between those teammates, right? There's a storyline there. And then you have Whittaker looking to get his belt back. You have Darren Till looking to make a title run. I don't think Darren Till's a very tough guy, honestly speaking, so I think Vettori is probably going to beat him. He's a very skilled guy. He's a tremendous martial artist. I just don't think he's a very tough guy.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I mean, Till's dangerous. I mean,
easy
Till's
for me
dangerous.
to say.
Yeah. No, I can't speak. Plus, Darren Till's kind of sometimes he might be calling you here tomorrow, dude.
He's a little cuckoo.
Till's skilled, man. Till is skilled. Till is very dangerous.
Till has the skills to pay the bills.
There you go. But Vettori's a tough matchup, man. Vettori's a tough match, and that's where the storyline is. And I alluded to that at the beginning of the show that maybe Izzy wants that storyline to be Till beats Vettori, but the storyline is Vettori's given Izzy the toughest fight to date. In that division, rather, and that if he beats Till, I don't see how Vettori doesn't get that rematch. But then Robert Whittaker's sitting right there, and how do you not give the former champ? The UFC has options, and that's what they want. The matchmakers in the UFC want options. Us as fans and journalists covering the sport, we kind of want a more crystal clear path. But it doesn't work that way. I don't know who's going to get the title fight out of these people. If Kevin Gastelum and Vettori wins, Vettori gets it because of the storyline. But I don't know what's going to happen because Whittaker, man.
Robert Whittaker's the guy, though, in that division who you got to look at, Jeff, and I just had to think about that for a minute because Vettori's on a roll. Kelvin gets another opportunity. Costa had his chance. Izzy's the king of that division, regardless of what happened in the Jan fight. I know everybody wants to see Vettori. He's that nouveau name of the month, flavor of the month since of what he did to Hermanson. But I definitely and how close his fight was against Izzy. But I have to think the storyline there for everyone involved is Robert Whittaker. It has to be. For the UFC to get their dream scenario, it has to be Whittaker with a big time impressive win to get the rematch against Izzy. It has to be.
Yeah. If Whittaker looks good, man, I mean that has to be it. I mean, unless Izzy just doesn't want that fight for whatever reason, and he holds a win over him. So let's not run our imagination crazy on why he wouldn't want that. Maybe he wants fresh blood. Maybe he wants a different face, and that's why he's calling out Till. Because Till is the one. He's fought Vettori. He's fought Whittaker. He's fought Costa, and he's kind of like, yeah, Darren Till's a new face. I'll do that. And maybe that's his motivation. But Whittaker's clear. If Whittaker beats Gastelum, Whittaker's clearly the number one contender and should have that rematch. But I don't know how much the UFC wants that, and I don't know how much Adesanya wants that. Hopefully, we all can get on the same page because I sure as hell want to see that fight. But you got to get past Kelvin first, man. I mean, Kelvin's a gamer. Kelvin didn't just jump into this fight because of a payday. He thinks he can beat Robert Whittaker. He wants the opportunity for him to be the number one contender all of a sudden and jump over a lot of people in line. And Gastelum's a tough out, man. I mean, Gastelum gave Izzy a tough fight. He hit him with big shots. In fact, I think that's when I realized that Adesanya actually has a chin. I don't feel like he took big shots before that, or it was one shot and that was it. Gastelum hit him with some big shots, and Adesanya was able to remain standing, man. And so that fight showed me a lot. Kelvin's not an easy matchup. I'd predict Whittaker's going to win that fight, man, but you never know. Kelvin has dynamite in his left hand.
Yeah, he does, man. And that's something with Whittaker. Rob would have to be careful. Kevin looked really good. He's good at pushing the pace. He's wrestling. Rob wasn't himself in the Izzy fight. He let, I think, Izzy take him out of his game a little bit. He's a little more subdued, really was aggressive, a lot more aggressive in that fight. And I thought that he felt he had to be that way to beat Adesanya. But I don't know, man. Until anyone in that division shows me they can even take Izzy down, he's on the next level. But I am excited for Kelvin to get the shot. Vittori's earned it. That's a great. The one guy I want to see get punched in the mouth is Darren Till. I don't have anything against him per se. He seems like that kind of annoying, obnoxious dude at the bar who everyone wants to punch but can't because he'll kick everyone's ass. But good for us, he's a pro fighter, so he is going to get hit. I just don't seem. He doesn't seem to be the type of dude that I would want to be all that successful in life. And I could be wrong, but that just is my take overall. And then I look at KG and Whittaker. I would like to see the winner of that fight, get the title shot. I'd like to see Kelvin get an impressive finish win over Rob and get that rematch with Izzy, because that's the best fight I've seen in that division. I mean, those are the two. If you want to go by that result and what you saw from Kelvin and Izzy in that fight, and then the other one that everybody seems to want to see is Izzy against Darren Till, because of the styles making fights and still being Till being a great striker on the feet, with the elbows, the kickboxing. So that would be a pretty cool stylistic fight to see Izzy and Till.
Yeah, Izzy and Till's a fun fight, but I think that Izzy and the rematches with Whittaker and Gaslam are fun fights. They were fun fights the first time around. I agree with what you said about Whittaker. I felt like Whittaker was going out to knock him out. He was headhunting. He wanted to make a statement against Adesanya that I'm the damn champion and you're not going to come up there. Well, it didn't work out for him, but I can't see him approaching a rematch in that way. You got to fight Izzy methodically, but that's also what he does best, and so it's sure as hell dangerous to do that. And then you just got to hit him, right? You just got to hit him and make him uncomfortable standing directly in front of you. But Vittori's sitting in a good spot. I mean, we have to be honest about that. While we would love to see these rematches, if Vittori looks really good and wins, he's got the storyline and he hasn't lost. He has. He hasn't lost recently. It's sort of a fresher fight than the other two because their losses are more recent. Yeah, Till might be sitting pretty, man. Maybe that's why Izzy's calling out Till. And like you said, stylistically, that's the funnest fight because somebody's going to go to sleep in that. Especially because Darren Till takes crazy risk. People can say what they want about Darren Till, man. He goes out there and puts it on the line and puts himself in harm's way to get people out of there. And I think that's what Whittaker did against Adesanya and why he lost. This is such a great division, Jim. I mean, Jesus, man, we could talk all day, and we're only talking about like four guys. We haven't even gotten down to the Brunsons and of the world and stuff. The top of this division is so stacked.
Yeah, it is, and the UFC is just sitting pretty right now. I mean, when you got Masvidal coming up next month in that rematch against Usman, there's a big pay-per-view. You got Poirier, McGregor sitting there with the trilogy. That's a big pay-per-view. You have Stipe and Ngannou, which is, I think, a pretty decent pay-per-view, and Ngannou, by the way, a pretty decent-sized favorite in that fight. But then you have John Jones waiting for the winner. Stipe against Jones, Stipe against Ngannou, also a $1 million+ pay-per-view fight. The UFC's looking at Henry Cejudo coming back possibly this year. Is there a big fight for him? He talked about Max Holloway this week, and if you saw my interview with Vitor Belfort a month ago, Vitor talked about that. So that's something that Henry's always wanted to fight Max. It hasn't been about Volko, it's been about Max. And then you have all these other divisions. You have Dominic Cruz working his way back up in the rankings. You talk about middleweight. What about Uriah Hall and Chris Weidman kind of rounding out that top 10-ish? I think it's 9 and 11, in their matchup. Weidman's 11, a former champ, like Dominic Cruz on the outside looking in at the top 10 with a win over Uriah Hall. He's back in there, and maybe he'll get a guy like Brunson in his next fight. So I think it's pretty cool to see. You're going to have some contenders weeded out, and you're going to have more toward the top of the division. And I can't wait, man. It's the 185ers' time to shine.
Yeah, and look, we like you said, we've got huge fights coming up for the remainder of this year, and apparently maybe Khabib is coming back. After meeting with Lorenzo Fertitta, he said send location. So we don't know. Does he come back if Poirier wins? If Poirier wins, does he fight Chandler? So I don't know what's going to happen, but it looks like for real Khabib might actually come back for one more. It's looking more and more. I've never been more optimistic. You know how I am. I've been pessimistic about Khabib. I thought Khabib's done. He's retired. Why are we even talking about it? Let's move on. And now I'm not sure. I'm more optimistic now that Khabib's going to come back and fight for that 30th win. I just don't know who he's going to do it against. Now, if Conor beats Poirier, we know who it's going to be. But if Conor doesn't, I still think Khabib's going to take one fight.
Man, that'd be interesting to see whether it's GSP, whether it's Conor. I mean, I think it would only be GSP from Khabib's standpoint, but they're still dancing around each other. And look, there's a reason why Dana hasn't stripped him yet. There's a reason why Dana hasn't made an interim title fight yet. This, I feel like, is all part of a storyline. I'm waiting to see Vince McMahon behind a closed door in the back somewhere.
Well, look, Dana doesn't want to strip him of the title because Khabib's a huge draw. I mean, he's a national hero in Russia. He's a huge draw in Abu Dhabi. Probably maybe the biggest draw on the UFC roster. And so if they can get one more huge pay, and the fans are coming back now. And so if they can get one more huge pay-per-view out of Khabib, it works out great for the promotion. And then for Khabib, it's his legacy. It's that 30-0. It's that magic number. Although I don't know why 29-0, 30 is any better. I mean, Jesus, it's all undefeated and at a long streak. But 30 does look better than 29, and so maybe he'll come back and get that milestone. He did want to do that. His dad did want him to do that, and so maybe you see that. I'm optimistic that we're going to. I mean, that's where I am. I'm optimistic that we're going to. I think that the meeting with Lorenzo, he kind of put things in perspective to Khabib. But man, this is going to be the biggest payday of your life. You're going to be able to sell off to the sunset as one of the greatest fighters ever to step into the octagon. Maybe the UFC does it in Russia. Maybe they do it in Russia. Maybe they give that to Khabib. Let's do one in Moscow with Khabib headlining the fight card, and let's try to figure out how the hell we're going to keep people from knocking the walls down to enter the place.
That'd be interesting. How would you ever keep the people out like that? There'd be no way.
Security, right? You just say security. But I don't know how you keep all those Dagestan wrestlers out of there. What security are you going to get? Jesus, if they want to turn on security, man, we're in a hell of a problem. But it is what it is. We're kind of joking about that. They're not going to rush the arena, but I'm not joking about the demand. That would be shown publicly on TV. I mean, could you imagine like it'd be a national holiday in Russia for Khabib to defend that title, especially if it's against Conor McGregor in Moscow?
No doubt.
Holy shit.
There'd be no doubt. That would be something, man. I don't even know. I mean, what would you even do?
I would. I mean, that's where I would do it, and then I would let Conor have a swan song in Ireland when his career starts to come to an end. Just because, man, it's hard for us as Americans to relate to that. Conor McGregor is a damn national hero, man. I mean, he's bigger than politicians. He's bigger than I mean, I don't even know anybody that's bigger than him in Ireland, and we just don't get that in America. We've got too many stars and too many sports and too much politics and too much craziness going on. Dana White's a bigger star in America than Khabib. In Russia, he's not. In Ireland, he's not bigger than Conor, and so maybe that's the way I'll explain it to people. That Dana White's the biggest star in the UFC in the United States. The biggest star in the UFC in Russia is Khabib. Biggest one in Ireland is, of course, Conor. The biggest one in Canada is GSP. And on and on and on and on and on. And Max Holloway, Hawaii, yes, it's a 50th state, but I consider them a province of their own in a way. They should be. That's my shout out to BJ Penn.
Oh man, any other thoughts on this week's fight card before we wrap it up? It's a UFC preview show, and it's powered by CBD Emporium featuring Level Select CBD. Stay in the fight, MMA.com. The code is MMA50 to get 50% off CBD Emporium and Level Select CBD products today, just because you know us, just because we like you, just because you watch the shows. So, Jeff, final thoughts on UFC Fight Night, Brunson versus Holland. I'm looking to see how Gillespie bounces back after that loss to Kevin Lee, and how much of that was, how good is Kevin Lee? And then Lee got submitted by Charles Oliveira, so how good is Oliveira? Because Lee looked great against Gillespie, not so great against Oliveira, and Oliveira is on the big win streak. So I'm anxious to see what Gregor looks like against Brad Riddell, who's relatively unknown, 3 UFC fights, so a couple of guys there at lightweight. And then I'm looking to see, I'm always entertained by Tai Tuivasa, but I'm anxious to see, is Brunson now the gatekeeper at middleweight for the top 5? Is he the top 5 gatekeeper? Is he the guy you have to beat to get into that top 5? And that will answer the question, is Kevin Holland ready to be a top 5 and title contending fighter? That alone is worth watching this fight card this weekend.
Yeah, and look, the obvious storylines. Exactly. Brunson is the gatekeeper to the top 5. If he loses this fight, he's going to be the gatekeeper to the top 10. But he's still a good name. You got to get past Brunson to go anywhere in that middleweight division. But there are little gems sprinkled Your name, Jim. Yeah, little nuggets of beauty sprinkled throughout this fight card with like Adrian Yanez versus the Gustavo Lopez. They're the bantamweights. Both those guys are on long winning streaks. That's a good fight. On the preliminary card with Marion Renee against Macy right there. Marion's lost 3 fights in a row. You know, if she loses, she's ranked. If she no one can suffer 4 losses in a row, and so she's likely fighting for her job. And then the lightweights, you know, down on the preliminary card, Leandro Santos and Grant Dawson. Man, don't sleep on that. I think that's your fight of the night. And both those guys are on, you know, long win streaks. In fact, Santos hasn't lost since 2009. I mean, holy shit, he hasn't lost a fight this decade. And so there are nice fights sprinkled throughout this fight card, none with huge name values, but definitely don't sleep on this card. Tune in on Saturday. It's going to be fun from the preliminary card all the way through the main event.
Wow, no doubt. Very excited about that, Jeff. Can't wait. Jim Grieshaber, Jeff Cain, very excited to have you with us. UFC Preview is now right here, powered by CBD Emporium, featuring Level Select CBD. Jeff, I'm going to have to go. And by the way, you can get 50% off by entering the code MMA50, 50% off at stayinthefightmma.com. Jeff, I'm going to have to go right now. I lean toward Brunson. His skill sets are just so polished, the wrestling, the striking. I think he's actually better than a top 5 gatekeeper. I think he's as good as almost anybody at or near the top of the division, maybe not quite championship level, but right there on the outside. I think there's levels to it, and I think we're going to find out that Holland is not on that level, and I do believe Brunson wins this fight.
I'm picking Brunson to win this fight because I think it's a very difficult stylistic matchup for Kevin Holland. Holland, Holland's good. He's a very confident striker, but I feel like he keeps his head on the center line. I want to see how he does on the ground when he's not knocking you out from the bottom, like, you know, legitimately being controlled on the ground. What's his submission game? You know, I feel like there's a lot of unknowns with Kevin Holland. What we do know about him is he always finds a way to win. You know, he just finds a damn way to win. But I think Brunson's the better, more polished fighter. But Holland has that wow finishing, you know, ability that makes this fight very, very interesting. I think Brunson's the better fighter. Brunson's going to control this fight, but don't sleep on Holland, man. You know, he might land another one of those Jacare things. I mean, the guy has crazy finishing ability from a lot of different positions.
Yeah, he does, and he's got that it factor, that star factor, that ability to talk, that ability to get that needle moving. So for the UFC, it'd be a good position for him to get a win and then vault himself into that top 5. Can you imagine, you know, him going back and forth with Izzy, the war of words with Darren Till? That'd be a lot of fun. So, Jeff, your final thoughts as we head into this fight card, man. I mean, I know we're both excited to see it. I know we can't wait to see, you know, where Brunson goes with it, where Holland goes with it with this opportunity. But as I look forward and I turn the corner to these next 3, you know, fight nights, again, with this one, with Vittori and Till, and with now Whittaker and Gastelum, the middleweight division is going to take shape. You have the heavyweight championship fight next week. You have the featherweight championship fight next week. And now you have the news that Usman Masvidal 2, with the 2 female title fights, Valentina Andrade and Weili Zhang and Thug Rose.
Yeah, look, my thoughts on this are, and I'm going to go outside the box, Jim, and you know, and just throw this out there. All these middleweights for the next 3 weeks, the next events, several events being all lined out, and the top of that division shaking out. It's almost like they thought Izzy was going to win the light heavyweight title, and they were going to have to crown an interim champion. And they lined up these events to do just that, except Izzy lost. That's kind of my opinion on the matchmaking here, is that they had a plan B. Plan B's playing out right now, and now it's plan C. It's who's going to be the number 1 contender against Adesanya. But I feel like this isn't a coincidence, right? Izzy fought for the championship. The UFC thought he might win, obviously. And they were lining up the middleweight division to where they could crown somebody at the top of it for Izzy to face later on when he came back. But right now, we're going to crown the number 1 contender to face Izzy for the championship match. But that's kind of my take on what's going on in the middleweight division and the UFC matchmaking right here. But look, this is going to be a great card. Yeah. You can't beat ESPN fight cards. You can watch this on your couch. It's not going to cost you the $70 or whatever it is. You can invite your friends over, order pizzas, whatever, wings. These are the funnest ones, man, in my opinion, because they don't break the bank.
Who's going to fight Izzy for the title? That's going to work itself out in the next 3 weeks. Who's John Jones going to fight in his heavyweight debut? That's going to work itself out in the next couple of weeks, next week per se. Who's going to be the featherweight champ? Will it be Volko defending? Will T-City win that belt? And then will Max Holloway get the rematch against T-City? Or will it be against Volko? It's got to be against one of them. There's no way Max Holloway is not a title contender in that division. And then will they make the announcement, McGregor and Poirier, the trilogy fight? And then on top of that, you have Masvidal and Usman and the 2 female title fights. What a run it's been to start this year for the UFC, coming off the pay-per-view with Amanda, with Sterling and Jan, with Izzy trying to take Jan Blachowicz belt at 205, and all the stuff that's happening now at middleweight. The welterweight championship fights. This will be the second one with Usman and Masvidal now doing the rematch. So many incredible storylines, so many great things to keep track of. It's the UFC, baby. And there's only one UFC. I say that all the time, but what a year it's been so far, Jeff. It's fun doing these shows with you every week, man. It's fun working with everybody at MMA Weekly. Smash that like button, subscribe button, hit the bell so you know when we're coming your way with more content. We are the best in the game, and we're going to keep throwing new content at you throughout the year on MMA Weekly. For Jeff Cain, for everyone on our team, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here with us this week. It's UFC's preview show on MMA Weekly, powered by CBD Emporium, featuring Level Select CBD. Stay in the fight with Level Select CBD. 3 different levels for 3 levels of pain. Helps with anxiety, helps with sleep, and everything else. Level Select CBD from CBD Emporium. You get 50% off right now at stayinthefightmma.com with the code MMA50. Want to talk to you guys again soon. We'll be here streaming live this Saturday night, UFC Fight Night, Brunson versus Holland, and of course UFC Fallout, 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific is on Sunday. For Jeff and our whole crew, I'm Gries saying keep your game tight and your mind right. We are out.